Advanced English Arabic Learning Session 16. Red tape entangles the interrogation process. This law will just create more red tape. She spooned sugar into her mug. Bereavement leave. It's essentially a fragile truce. Some people resemble their dogs. Striking resemblance among these figures. They carried out raids in order to plunder, to buy sustenance for their families. Something akin to gratitude overwhelmed her. The family's ancestral home. A white bridal veil. She veiled her face. His wife has a domicile of origin in Germany. The tenant is domiciled in the USA. He called a meeting to solicit their views. I was touched by his solicitude. Their solicitude for the less fortunate members. To fit with his avowed mission of neutrality. Incapacitating ailments. Hypersensitive behavior. Don't solicit for money. To prevent the evasion of obligations. The horse was sound and free from vice. To stave off looming financial disaster. Retrospectively or prospectively. Ageism in recruitment is an increasing problem. Ageism is pervasive and entrenched in our society. Her artistic skills atrophied from lack of use. A clergyman who arranged a sham marriage. They retain their separate legal personalities. He ratified the contract in its entirety. Red blots of paint covered the soldiers' uniforms. She refrained from comment. Magnetic induction. Inductive reasoning. Ignoble feelings of intense jealousy. The town's economic base collapsed. His laconic reply suggested a lack of interest in the topic. The numerator, number on top. The denominator, number on bottom. The opportunism and favoritism. This is not an exhaustive list. They set off firecrackers to make a lot of commotion. She set off at daybreak. We'd better set off before the traffic starts. We got off the bus and walked to my house. The workers feel they are not getting a square deal, fair deal. Blacktopped roads means asphalted roads. The procedural steps to get a company incorporated. Special circumstances dictate to us to surrender. Drafting legal documents. He promised to expedite economic reforms. A shopping expedition. An expedition to the jungles of the Malmo. The media incitement. Appointment and dismissal of directors. The quorum at directors' meetings. Adjourned meetings. When and how polls must be taken. The country went to the polls on March 10. The bona fide test. The most elaborate analysis. Truancy and expulsion from school. I threw off my shoes and flopped on the settee. The board's deliberations reached ends. Hubris is the precursor of the end. A three-stringed precursor of the violin. A three-stringed fiddle. Legacy system. They become of unsound mind. He has been de jure king since his father's death. The diameter of the moon. A small principality on the coast of France. You can really relax and recharge yourself. His mouth fell open as he perceived the truth. The costs of German unification. Criticizing the Israeli move as a ruse. She tried to think of a ruse to get him out of the house. The moon was lucent in the background. Fry until the onions become translucent. Talk of unity was nothing more than a charade. The room was very dusty. Mary used a broom to sweep the dust. The baker dusted the bread with powdered sugar. She resolved to call him as soon as she got home. He resolves not to attend board meetings again. To resolve outstanding issues. I fell in the stream and got drenched. The head of the racket had a curious warp. Wood has a tendency to warp. Their arms were held out crosswise. Cut the bacon crosswise into pieces. Have the potatoes lengthwise. A lengthwise crack. Peel and have the pears. The elbow joint. His larynx. He declined to sing the national anthem. Sealed in self-certitude. A virulent strain. The country's creaky legal system. I climbed the creaky stairs. A just and democratic society. Her already lofty frame. Sheer madness. She tries so hard to be sexy and racy. Issued an ultimatum to the refugees. To infiltrate to the criminal syndicate. Each book is bound in genuine leather. It would herald the beginning of the apocalypse. He changed his name by deed poll. They released the first tranche of the loan. I'm sick of you prying into my personal life. A transverse beam supports the dashboard. He looked dubious, but complied. Extremely dubious assumptions. They are limbering up for the end of the financial year. An aerial battle. Soap will not lather in hard water. He started turning wood on a lathe. The course of true love never did run smooth. The house was full of unsold turnery. A slender majority of 4. Marriage is still the passport to distaff power. He is held up as an object of ridicule. His theory was ridiculed and dismissed. The elegant square was shaded by lofty palms. Lofty tone. Lofty stance. A versatile sewing machine. The danger is now past. She found it hard to make ends meet in the past. It's 2:30. The carrier pigeon. Computer remains a remarkably versatile tool. Who knew stretchy fabric could be so versatile? The interest is payable in a lump sum on maturity. It also provides 3-tier analysis. The body in its anatomized form. The discs carry a multifaceted significance. Multifarious activities. There was a lump of ice floating in the milk. In 1939 he turned to films in earnest. The faceplate is turned rather than cast. He grabbed a spear for a third cast. Lemmings cast themselves off the cliff. He had a cast in one eye, a slight squint. The moon cast a pale light over the cottages. The issue was cast from the list of concerns, discard. He was cast as the Spanish dancer. The bronze casts of the sculpture. The speech heralded a change in policy. The stony disapproval of the citizens. There was a small charge outstanding, remaining to be paid. Fines to tackle truancy and dropout. He scratched his poll and smiled feebly. A quorum of 3 members is required. 3. Was he ill or was he shamming? Without exercise, the muscles will atrophy. It developed on a piecemeal basis. He scribbled a prescription for tranquilizers. To devolve power to local decision makers. Rateable value. A contagious infection. The boastful talk means a meaningless rhetoric. The campaign should avoid the illegal postering. Who are the duties owed to? Who are the duties owed by? A bird had pecked a hole in the sack. She was sacked for insolence. Worn-out car tires were stacked in heaps. Looking for a needle in a haystack. Silver trays stacked with food. He poised motionless on his toes. With her nicely poised head. Poise and good deportment can be cultivated. It creates poise and grace of movement. She was a tall girl, slender and graceful. She moved through the water with effortless grace. She went up the steps in 2 effortless bounds. A dumb question. Critics have accused publishers of dumbing down books. A splendor that dazed the mind and dumbed the tongue. They are deaf, dumb, and blind. He has deported himself with great dignity. They departed for Germany. He buffed the glass until it gleamed. An attempt to win her love was met with rebuffs. He will soon depart his post as a teacher. Rumors of a further scandal abound. It is easy to see why rumor abounds about olfactory nerve fibers and the olfactory bulb. He lives a reclusive life in a secluded home. The obliteration of vast green spaces. She is just so vile. These stumpy heifers. To be expedient in the public interest. To ensure high standards of financial probity. A soldier of a cavalry regiment armed with lances. The court could show leniency. The lymph glands in the armpit. They bear some resemblance to Italian figurines. The work exigencies. With a hastily he took a gulp of water. She is cradling her beautiful bump with her hand. To avoid pitfalls and fixes. The end. Coming next. Session 17.